it's unusual for us not to have talked about COVID at the very top of the show. And I want to roll into that next. Effective Friday, May 28th, this past Friday, Montgomery County joined the rest of the state to follow relaxed COVID-19 restrictions, including allowing fully vaccinated individuals to not wear masks while indoors. Now, Mark, I did my own non-scientific poll. I was down in Lower Slower, Delaware over the weekend, and virtually nobody there was wearing masks. It's the honor system, I suppose. But as soon as I came back to Montgomery County and went to my local Safeway, 98% of the people had masks on. Do we just love being told what to do here in Montgomery County, or what?
Montgomery County is a belt and suspenders and something else jurisdiction in terms of protections and what have you. But I also think, I think you alluded to it, there's more than a little bit of social shaming. I think there's kind of a critical mass when folks reach that point where they're going to take their masks off, and then everybody does. But we have not reached that. I've traveled as well and seen that elsewhere. There's places like Colorado. Believe me, they do not have the masks to the extent that we do in our community.
Although it was interesting, I was in South Florida 2 weekends ago, and there, even on South Beach, many people were wearing masks. And at any restaurant I went into, everyone was masked until they got to their table, and I was very, very surprised.
That does surprise me, because my Florida clients say that it's like the Wild West down there. This was earlier on. This was last January, when Florida was one of the few states not to enforce the mask requirements. Now, Mike, I want to continue on this theme about COVID, because, obviously the impact of the vaccinations has been tremendous in reducing the number of cases, thankfully so. One of the debating points along the way was, when could teachers and students be back in classrooms together? And it was announced this week that only 70% of the teachers have been fully vaccinated. So should the county require, or the school system require, that teachers be fully vaccinated in order that we fully open up in September?
I think so. I mean, I think we're wrestling with that right now at Montgomery College. But what we're finding, though, is that most of our employees, if they're not vaccinated yet, are getting vaccinated. We're making sure that they have opportunity to do that. I think you've got to do the same thing at the school system. Interestingly, I was just looking at my daughter's university, and they're mandating that all employees be vaccinated before they return, and have dates certain. So if you don't have your credentials in place by August 1st, indicating that's the case, you're not coming back. So I think, from a leadership perspective within the community, I think that you look to teachers to kind of take that lead, as you do others. But I think if you're going to be in a classroom and create a safe environment, you need to be in a position to help show what you're doing to contribute to that.
Well, but I think that what is also the part of this argument is, should students be vaccinated? And since there's very little evidence that students are harmed or at that age level are harmed by the coronavirus and are very unlikely to pass along, I'd rather have all the teachers vaccinated and not have the students vaccinated.
Well, and I just don't know what the timing of the students will be anyway, right? So we're rolling that out much more slowly. And so, so you're still under 12, they're still not on the, in a position to be vaccinated yet. So I agree. I think it makes sense to have the teachers be vaccinated and all school employees. It's a safe environment.
Even though Moderna announced just the other day that it's going to seek full approval for its vaccination, it's still an experimental drug at this point, an experimental use. And I just worry about vaccinating people younger than 12. And there have been many proponents who have encouraged that that should be done. So
I think since both Pfizer and Moderna have already filed for that, to me, which is why I think it's important to have the teachers and employees vaccinated, because you have that piece addressed, and then I think it's necessarily going to take longer once those approvals come through to then make sure you get students vaccinated. And we still have an interesting debate about whether or not the parents will get their children vaccinated with things prior to having this discussion. So I assume there will be a significant number of parents who will feel that way on these vaccines too.
Well, I mean, I think the good news is that as the vaccine, we haven't reached that point now, but as the numbers do get up higher, we are reaching a point where the virus is less likely to spread and it will be more limited. So we can accommodate those people who have some individual objections for whatever reason.
But when we went through this process last year, I mean, if you recall, we relaxed standards a great deal sometime after June and through the latter part of June, July, and August. And then as soon as we got into mid-September, when the coronavirus numbers started climbing up again, we had to retrench. And I think that, is going to be very difficult to do this next year because, and I hope there won't be a need for it. Sir.
But we're above 70% with vaccination. Actually, the number for the teachers reflects the broader population. At least
you mean they're in sync with the population at home?
That's roughly equivalent to where we were at Memorial Day in the state, 70%. So
well, we got to take a break now. So when we come back from this short break, there is another challenger among the many for county executive. They announced last week. Stay tuned. We'll let you know who that is.